Today I want to talk to you about weapons handling. More specifically, if the weapon is not in your holster or pointed at a justified adversary or a target. I think there is a assumption out there that if you spend a lot of time purchasing a holster, do a lot of draws in practice, you become proficient with that draw and reholster. And if you go to the range and you do a lot of shooting, you're getting a lot of rounds out of that barrel, that you're going to be a proficient weapons handler when the weapon is not in a holster or up on target. Simply not the truth. In particular, when stress is involved. Stress does amazing things to people in their decision making, and a lot of times the basic fundamentals completely go out the window when stress is involved. So what I want to talk about, this is the first of several series in weapons handling, is I'm going to show you one technique today, but in this series I'll show you several. I'm going to encourage you to do some research about weapons handling, and you essentially are ultimately going to pick the way you hold that gun outside the holster. But I will tell you, it's important you learn all of them. No different than how you hold a handheld light. It's good to learn a variety because your circumstances are going to be different. There's no one environment that is the same. And the same thing for how you hold this weapon. It could be the proximity of a threat to you, how you need to hold that weapon. It could be the environment you're in. You know, if you're on the first floor and you have a half a dozen family members on the second floor, maybe a high ready is not the way you want to hold the gun that day. So there's a lot of factors that come into play. It could be your backdrop. It could be what you have in your hand, and what you have to do with that hand. So learn all the techniques. The other videos will have some of them. Practice them all. Put them all in your toolbox because one day they could be very useful, these techniques. So the first one I want to talk about is the sul. Sul means south in Portuguese, right? And that weapon is pointed completely south. It is just outside your toes. And if this was a laser, this laser would not touch anything you're not willing to destroy. Okay. What I do is I take my left hand and my left thumb will go underneath of my right thumb, and I keep that weapon in a downward south position just outside my toes. This allows me to move through an environment as I want in a safe position. Okay. The other thing I love about the sul is your support hand is not married to the weapon. Okay. What I like about that is if you're going through a dynamic environment, it may be a situation where you have to hold a handheld flashlight, whatever technique you may use. You may have to open doorknobs. You may have to move friendlies out of the way as you're moving, as they're panicking, coming from an active shooter situation as an example. You may have to deliver a defensive strike. The other thing is good is your weapon's retention. You know, this weapon is in close proximity to your body, and the ability for somebody to get to that weapon quickly is going to be difficult. It's going to give you some reactionary time that you can ensure your retention of that gun. Drawbacks, we all know that action is quicker than reaction. If a threat presents itself, even if we're pointing our weapon at that subject, they're likely going to win, okay? Or it's going to be a 50-50. But add that to now a southwardly pointing weapon where you have to react and not only see that threat, the thought process identifies that threat, telling your hand to get that gun up and on target and then pull the trigger. That's all time, right? So this is a slight disadvantage. Another way to look at that is, though, however, is that time frame could give you more decision making, right? Because initially what comes around that corner just might be a startled employee. It may not be a threat where you may have a sympathetic gunfire based on something else that's occurring in that environment, or a startle effect where you pull that trigger accidentally. So sul is just one. I'm going to show you several of them. It's up to you to choose. So please join us in some other videos. But always remember, when you're handling that weapon outside the holster, touch index, this finger should be clearly outside the trigger guard unless you're pointing it at a justified threat and about to pull the trigger. And I like to keep it between the frame and the slide, no matter what kind of pistol system you have. And also remember the laser rule. Wherever that muzzle's pointing, that if there's a laser coming at, it should never cross anything you don't want to destroy. Remember those two things are absolutely key. Learn all the techniques, and you're going to want to apply that technique to the environment or situation at hand. Do me a favor, Go to our YouTube page, subscribe, hit notifications, so when we put some videos up, you can maybe learn something. Also, go to our webpage, www.peaceorhavoc.com, and get yourself some nice shirts. I hope everybody has a safe day.